when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another. So begins the Declaration of Independence, which was written 240 years ago this summer by Thomas Jefferson, 7th and Market. I love saying that. Everywhere else in the country it was in Philadelphia, but here it's at 7th and Market. And that was noteworthy for a few reasons, the most important of which is that when in the course of human events it becomes necessary to do this, it sounds like that's the sort of thing that had happened all the time, but that had never happened before. No colony had ever broken away from its colonial power before. But Thomas Jefferson is there acting like, yeah, well, this is just the sort of thing that happens and we're up to this stage now, so let's move on. Pretty powerful. The talk today is called Freedom From and Freedom To. And there are two ways that we can think about freedom. Our freedom individually, the freedom that we have as a group, as a culture, as a people. It's freedom from those restrictions or limitations or outside pressures, the freedoms from having to do what somebody else is compelling us or wanting us or urging us or nudging us or whatever to do. And on the other side of that is the freedom to, the freedom to choose, the freedom to do as we want to do, the freedom, the open, clean canvas upon which we can paint our own life. And if we're looking in one direction, freedom from, what is the oppression which I'm going to be escaping? And freedom to is towards that light. What is it that I want to be creating in my life now? Jefferson said something else that was really cool in the Declaration of Independence, which has been called one of the most recognizable phrases in the English language. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What a badass. He's making up something brand new and saying, we hold this to be self-evident, which means we're not going to talk about whether this is true or not. We are going to assume that this is true, and then we're going to discuss how we're going to make it happen for us. Man. And so eloquently put. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Well, self-evident truths, another word for those can be assumptions. And we always need to be careful with the assumptions that we're making, because when we make an assumption, we're leaving out a really important part of the process, which is why it is that we want that in the first place. That's our freedom to. And it dovetails in with our freedom from. Because if we are running away from something, if there's a situation or circumstance which is driving us, it's like, I don't want to be like my mother. She did this, that, and the other thing wrong, and I'm going to model my life around doing the opposite of what she did. I am free from all of those restrictions and limitations, and as long as I'm thinking about it in those terms, she's still in control. All of those lessons are still driving me. In my freedom from, if I'm thinking about what happened that I don't want to do, that's where I'm anchored. The freedom too is when I get to let go of those assumptions and move into a new pattern. So doing that part was historical. This one's just old. There's an exercise, sort of a business exercise in the 80s and 90s. And if you have seen this one before, then recall fondly the first time that you worked through the exercise. If you are able to make it up yourself, then congratulations for you. And if you're just stuck in the puzzle for a moment now, then we get to dive in. So for those of you who want to be nostalgic, just play along. The exercise is, without removing your pencil or your marker from the paper, how can you connect the 9 dots using just 4 lines? Go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that leaves those 2. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that leaves that 1. The question is, how can you connect all 9 dots with 4 lines without removing the marker or the pen from the paper? And it can be done. And the idea there is, if we're thinking the way that we've always been thinking, we're going to be stuck with the patterns that we've been using before. We're not free from those ideas, those assumptions about how things are going to be going. Our friend Robert D. McDonald has 4 questions that we can use for arranging what we want to have happen next in our life. You guys have heard them before. I'll go over them again. Question number 1, are you happy with the experience of your life that you're having now? It's a yes or no question. If the answer is yes, congratulations, you're finished. Class is over, you're dismissed. Go have the life that you want to be having. That's the first thing. Because if you don't need to change anything, then we don't need to change anything. Question number 2. If the answer is no, what experience of my life do I want to be having instead? Those first 2 questions are really important. That gets us freedom from and freedom to. Okay, I have the freedom to choose. Do I want to keep doing what I've been doing, or do I want freedom from what I have been doing before? Once I say I want freedom from that, now what do I want the freedom to do? What do I want to have happen next? And it opens up that door for us. Just out of curiosity, is there anybody here who had not seen this exercise before who figured it out? To raise your hand. Cool. For the rest of you who have either seen it or haven't figured it out, that's how you do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. But in order to do that, oh, and by the way, this is in your program, so you can draw it at home. I'll put 9 dots in the program. In order to do that, you need to do what? You need to go outside the box. Now, this has become a pet peeve of mine, because if you're working inside the box, you can't do it with 4 lines. If you go outside the box, then you can. This is what people mean when they say outside the box thinking. We're going to think outside the box. Now, a lot of people recently have been talking about out of the box thinking, which is not the same. Or a prepackaged system, which they say an out of the box solution, which sounds like this, but is not. This is actually, let's tie up the box and put everything inside of the 9 dots, and then that's all you're going to have. How many times do we confine what could be happening next by what's happened before? We're thinking inside the box, whatever that box happened to be. If our choices are limited, regardless of how big the box was, then we don't have that freedom to do something new. So we get to let go of those assumptions. I know nothing. Now what can I know? If I let go of those assumptions, I thought I had all the answers, but I don't actually know anything. Let's pretend that I'm completely ignorant in this situation. I don't know anything at all. Let me open myself up to something new. That's the invitation. That's the freedom, to let go of that old stuff, to open up the box and see what it's like to experience our life without the box. I'm not going to do this based on how my mom was or my dad was or what the coach told me when I was in Little League. I'm going to do this as though I'm right here, right now. What's possible for me? What's new for me? And that's what Robert D. McDonald is talking about. The third question, after you decide what it is that you want to have, is once you have it, how will you know that you have it? Once you have it, how will you know that you have it? I want to have $96,000. How will I know I have it? I'll have $96,000. I want to be happy. How will I know that I'm happy? I want to be healthy. How will I know that I'm healthy? Maybe I'm already healthy, but I'm just not noticing that I'm healthy. Maybe I put myself inside of a poverty box and I think that I'm impoverished, but in fact I'm not. Whatever it is that I'm assuming, what I need to do is give myself some metrics. Once I have it, how will I know that I have it? And if it's going to be happiness, then I'll know because I wake up a minimum of 4 days every week feeling happy. And I'm just going to keep a journal. Happy, not happy, happy, not happy. And then what happens is we get to go about whatever that process is to bring more happiness into our lives, and we look at the journal. Hey, I'm getting 6 out of 7 on happy. And by the way, it's always Tuesday morning when I'm not. Let's do something different Monday. Whatever it happens to be. Give yourself the metrics. How will I know that I have it once I have it? That lets us break outside of those 9 dots. Something else that happened in the 90s, a friend of mine was dating a woman who was a poultry scientist. And this was like the natural food craze was going in. There have been free-range cattle forever. And free-range cattle are wonderful. They like out west, they just let them graze, and they wander around wherever it is. They don't have to come inside. They're free-range. They go wherever they want to go. They graze on what they want to graze on. They live naturally. There's the notion of free-range chickens. Chickens, it turns out, think inside the box. If you give chickens 150 acres, and in the middle of the 150 acres is a hen house, and in the hen house is their nest, their roost, they'll probably never go more than 25 or 30 feet from the hen house. So free-range chicken is kind of an oxymoron. In fact, it's possible to have very limited space and still have free-range chickens. I'm not going to tell you you can't go anywhere. You're just not going to go anywhere. Understanding that that's the situation lets us understand what the pattern is going to be. When the chicken has complete freedom to go wherever it's going to go, how will you know that it has complete freedom? Well, it's not going to be doing what the cow is doing because it doesn't want to do that. So it's understanding what that metric is going to be. The last question that Robert D. McDonald asks, and this is the challenging one, is what's keeping me from having it now? That's about our blocks. That's about whatever it is that's standing in the way of what we want to be happening next. Am I happy with my life the way it's going? If I'm not, what do I want to be having instead? Once I have that, how will I know that I have it? And what's keeping me from having that now? There is no action plan anywhere in those questions. This is a diagnostic and a guidance tool. Once we know what it is that we want to be having, once we understand that we want to be outside of our 9 dots, once we understand what it is that we want to be creating, that's when we get to use all of those other tools. We are very clever, very creative, very innovative people. Once we know what we want to create, there's all sorts of ways for us to create that. This is a way of understanding, am I happy with the way things are going now? And what kind of a change do I want to see in the world? And we can create any change that we want to see in the world. And nobody is deciding that you need to be a free-range whatever. If you want to stay close to home, you can. If you want to stay doing what you've been doing, there's nothing wrong with that. A really good friend of mine, we came up with the slogan for New Thought Philadelphia. Your new life begins with a new thought. He says, what if I don't? What if I'm happy with my life the way it is now? What if I don't want a new life? I said, you're just messing with me, right? He says, no, things are going great for me. And the answer for him, which was quite serious, is once he understood that he likes his life the way it's going now, that's what he gets to set his intention for. To continue to deepen into that experience, to marinate in it, to let those wonderful, loving, joyous experiences just fill his life and be part of who he is. We don't have to change anything. What we want to do is avoid assuming that we can't. Can you change something in your life? Yes, you can. I hold that truth to be self-evident. Create the life of your dreams. It starts today. Bless you and namaste.
Namaste.